The whispers followed Zara Harlow like a relentless shadow as she hurried down the dusty main street of Goldfield, Nevada, clutching her worn leather satchel tightly against her chest as though it might shield her from the cruel words that had branded her for years. Unmarriageable. They called her a spinster at 26, too educated, too opinionated, and most damning of all, marked by the scandal that had driven her family from Boston 5 years earlier. It was 1876, and Goldfield was booming with the promise of silver and gold, drawing fortune seekers and desperate souls alike to the harsh Nevada desert. Zara had not come for riches beneath the ground, but rather to escape the ghosts of her past and forge a new life teaching at the newly established schoolhouse. The building came into view at the end of the street, modest but sturdy, much like Zara herself. "Miss Harlow," a small voice called out, interrupting her thoughts. 8-year-old Lucy Daniels came running toward her, blonde braids bouncing, a gap-toothed smile lighting her face. "I picked these for you." She thrust forward a handful of desert wildflowers, their purple blooms surprisingly vibrant against the dusty landscape. "Why, thank you, Lucy," Zara said, accepting the gift with a genuine smile. Children were perhaps the only people in town who didn't judge her. To them, she was simply Miss Harlow, the teacher who read exciting stories and taught them about faraway places. "Papa says you're the smartest lady he ever met," Lucy announced proudly. "He says the townsfolk are silly for saying mean things about you." Zara felt her cheeks warm. Lucy's father, Declan Caldwell, was one of the few adults in town who treated her with genuine respect. A widower who had arrived in Goldfield 2 years ago with his young daughter, he had established the most successful cattle ranch in the territory. Tall and broad-shouldered, with sun-weathered skin and eyes the color of a summer storm, Declan cut an impressive figure whenever he rode into town. "Your father is very kind," Zara replied, carefully tucking the flowers into her satchel. "Now, shouldn't you be heading home? It'll be dark soon." "Papa's picking me up," Lucy said, pointing down the street where a tall figure on horseback was approaching. "There he is now. Papa." She waved enthusiastically. Declan Caldwell dismounted with the easy grace of a man who'd spent his life in the saddle. His weathered Stetson cast a shadow over his face, but Zara could see his smile as he approached. "Miss Harlow," he greeted, tipping his hat. "I hope my girl hasn't been pestering you after school hours." "Not at all, Mr. Caldwell. Lucy is a delight." "Papa," Lucy tugged at his sleeve. "Can Miss Harlow come to dinner sometime? Please." To her surprise, Declan laughed, a rich, warm sound that seemed to ease the tension. "My daughter speaks her mind, just like her mother did." "I apologize for her forwardness, Miss Harlow." "No need," Zara managed to reply, gathering her composure. "I should be going. Good evening to you both." She turned quickly, walking away before either could see the flush creeping up her neck. Behind her, she heard Lucy's insistent voice. "But Papa, she really would be perfect for you." The next morning, Zara arrived early at the schoolhouse to prepare for the day's lessons. The small building was peaceful in the early hours, with sunlight streaming through the windows, illuminating the rows of desks and the chalkboard where she had carefully written out the day's lessons. She was arranging books when the door creaked open. Expecting to see an early student, she turned with a welcoming smile that faltered when she saw Widow Jenkins, head of the town's ladies' auxiliary and self-appointed arbiter of Goldfield's morality. "Miss Harlow," the older woman said, her thin lips barely moving as she spoke. "I understand you were seen in a rather intimate conversation with Mr. Caldwell yesterday evening." Zara stiffened. "We exchanged greetings, Mrs. Jenkins. His daughter is my student." "Indeed," the widow sniffed. "Nevertheless, appearances matter greatly in a position such as yours. A woman with your history should be particularly careful." The reference to Zara's past stung like a physical blow. 5 years ago, her father had been accused of embezzling funds from the Boston bank where he worked. Though never proven, the scandal had destroyed their family. Her father had died of a heart attack during the investigation, and her mother had succumbed to pneumonia the following winter, leaving Zara alone to face the whispers and accusations. "My history, as you put it, is irrelevant to my abilities as a teacher," Zara said evenly, though her hands trembled slightly. "Now, if you'll excuse me, my students will be arriving soon." The school board meets next week to discuss the renewal of your position, Mrs. Jenkins said as she turned to leave. I would advise discretion in all your affairs until then. The threat hung in the air like the dust that never quite settled in Goldfield. Zara took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain composed until the door closed behind the widow. Only then did she allow herself to sink into her chair, heart pounding. She had worked so hard to build a respectable life here, far from Boston's judgmental society. Teaching was her calling, her salvation. The thought of losing her position because of unfounded gossip was unbearable. The school day passed in a blur of arithmetic lessons and reading exercises. Zara found herself watching Lucy Caldwell more closely than usual, noting the girl's bright intelligence and kind heart. She was so different from the other children, who sometimes parroted their parents' cruel whispers. Lucy seemed completely oblivious to Zara's status as the town pariah. As the children filed out at day's end, Lucy lingered. Miss Harlow, Papa asked me to give you this. She handed over a neatly folded piece of paper. Zara hesitated before accepting it, glancing around to ensure no prying eyes were watching. Thank you, Lucy. He said it's important, the girl added before skipping away to join her friends. Alone again, Zara unfolded the note with trembling fingers. Miss Harlow, I would be grateful for a moment of your time regarding Lucy's education. Would tomorrow after school be convenient? I can meet you at the schoolhouse to avoid any unnecessary talk. Respectfully, Declan Caldwell. The note was formal, proper exactly as correspondence between a parent and teacher should be. Yet Zara couldn't help the flutter in her chest as she read his bold, clear handwriting. Foolish, she chided herself. Mr. Caldwell was simply concerned about his daughter's schooling, nothing more. The following afternoon, Zara dismissed her students with an unusual sense of anticipation mingled with anxiety. Lucy gave her a knowing smile before departing with her friends, promising that her father would arrive shortly. True to his word, Declan Caldwell appeared at the schoolhouse door just as Zara was organizing the last of her papers. He removed his hat as he entered, revealing dark hair with threads of silver at the temples. The gesture was one of simple respect, yet it affected Zara more than she cared to admit. Miss Harlow, thank you for seeing me, he said, his deep voice filling the small room. Of course, Mr. Caldwell. Please, have a seat. She gestured to one of the larger chairs kept for parent meetings, trying to maintain professional composure. Declan settled himself somewhat awkwardly in the chair designed for someone of smaller stature. I'll come straight to the point, he said. I'm concerned about Lucy. Alarm shot through Zara. Is something wrong? Her performance in class is exemplary. It's not her schoolwork, he clarified quickly. Well, she lost her mother when she was only 4. There are things a growing girl needs to learn that I'm ill-equipped to teach. Understanding dawned on Zara's face. I see. There are certain subjects that might be better addressed by a woman. Declan nodded, relief evident in his expression. Exactly. I was hoping you might be willing to spend some additional time with her, perhaps visiting our ranch occasionally? I would compensate you fairly for your time, of course. Zara considered his request carefully. Professionally, it made perfect sense. Lucy was approaching an age where certain female guidance would be invaluable. But personally, the town would surely see it as confirmation of whatever impropriety they already suspected. Mr. Caldwell, I'm honored by your trust, she began cautiously, but I must consider my position. The school board will be reviewing my contract next week, and there have been concerns about my reputation. Declan's expression darkened. Widow Jenkins and her gossip brigade, I presume? Zara couldn't help but smile at his characterization. Among others. Miss Harlow, he said, leaning forward, his voice low and serious. I don't put much stock in town gossip. I judge people by their actions, not rumors. You're the finest teacher this town has ever had, and Lucy adores you. That's good enough for me. His words warmed her in a way she hadn't felt in years. Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. That means more than you know. Please, call me Declan. He smiled, the expression transforming his usually stern features. At least when we're not in public view. Then you must call me Zara, she replied, surprising herself with her boldness. A moment of silence stretched between them, filled with something unspoken but undeniably present. About my request, he finally continued. Perhaps we could arrange the visits in a way that wouldn't fuel gossip. Lucy could accompany you back to town afterward, for example. Zara nodded slowly. I believe that could work. Perhaps Saturday afternoons would be best? The schoolhouse is closed, and I could claim to be visiting a friend outside town if anyone inquires. Perfect. Declan stood, retrieving his hat. This Saturday, then? I can send the wagon for you around noon. That would be fine. Zara rose as well, suddenly aware of how he towered over her. And Mr. Caldwell, Declan, thank you for your confidence in me. Few in this town have shown me such consideration. Their loss, he said simply, placing his hat back on his head. Until Saturday, Zara. Long after he'd gone, Zara remained in the schoolhouse, her heart beating an unfamiliar rhythm. It was merely an arrangement to help a motherless girl, she told herself firmly. Nothing more. The ranch house itself surprised Zara, not the rough cabin she had expected, but a substantial two-story home built of solid timber, with a wide porch wrapping around the front. Lucy burst from the door before the wagon had fully stopped. Miss Harlow, you came. She grabbed Zara's hand as soon as she descended from the wagon. I've been waiting all morning. I have so much to show you. The next few hours passed pleasantly as Lucy proudly displayed her room, her collection of books, impressive for a frontier home, and the small garden she tended behind the house. Zara was struck by the care Declan had taken to provide a cultured upbringing for his daughter, despite the challenges of ranch life. They were sitting on the porch, with Zara gently explaining some of the changes Lucy would soon experience as she grew older, when the sound of hoofbeats announced Declan's arrival. Zara felt a flutter of nervousness as he dismounted and handed the reins to a waiting ranch hand. His face broke into a warm smile when he saw them. Well now, this is a fine sight to come home to. Lucy ran to embrace her father, chattering excitedly about everything she and Miss Harlow had discussed. Zara noticed with amusement how patiently he listened, genuinely interested in his daughter's day. Miss Harlow has the most wonderful ideas, Papa, Lucy concluded breathlessly. She's going to teach me about pressing flowers and writing proper letters, and oh, can she stay for dinner? Please. Declan looked to Zara, his expression questioning but hopeful. We'd be honored if you'd join us, Miss Harlow. Our housekeeper, Mrs. Diaz, makes an excellent stew. The invitation was tempting, too tempting. I should return to town before dark, Zara said reluctantly. Another time, perhaps. Disappointment flickered across his face, quickly masked. Of course. Miguel can drive you back whenever you're ready. Actually, Lucy interrupted. Miss Harlow was just about to show me how ladies arrange their hair for special occasions. Weren't you, Miss Harlow? The hopeful look on the girl's face made refusal impossible. I suppose I could stay a little longer, Zara conceded with a smile. Though I'm hardly an expert on fashionable hairstyles. What's his name? Zara asked as the foal nudged her palm with his velvet muzzle. He doesn't have one yet. Lucy insists on finding the perfect name. Declan leaned against the stall door, watching her. You're good with animals. Most city folk are nervous around them. My grandfather had a farm outside Boston, Zara explained, gently stroking the foal's neck. I spent summers there as a child. It was simpler there. People judged you less. Declan's expression sobered. The rumors about your family, I've heard them, of course. Small towns run on gossip. Zara stiffened, pulling her hand back from the foal. Then you know why I'm considered unmarriageable. The daughter of a disgraced banker, with no fortune and a tarnished family name. Is that what they say? Declan shook his head. Out here, we're all running from something, Zara. The past only matters if you let it define your future. His words penetrated the protective shell she'd built around herself. My father didn't do what they accused him of, she said quietly. He was many things stern, sometimes cold, but never dishonest. He died before he could clear his name, and my mother followed soon after. I came west because there was nothing left for me in Boston. Declan moved closer, his presence solid and reassuring. I'm sorry for your losses. I understand what it means to lose family. When Elizabeth, Lucy's mother, died, I thought my world had ended. How did you survive it? Zara asked, meeting his gaze directly. One day at a time, he answered simply. And by realizing that Lucy needed me to be strong. He hesitated, then added, Elizabeth would have liked you. She valued education and independence in women, traits that make some men uncomfortable, but that I've always admired. The compliment warmed her from within. Before she could respond, Lucy's voice called from the stable entrance. "Papa, Miss Harlow, dinner's ready." The meal was indeed excellent venison stew with fresh baked bread and preserved peaches for dessert. Mrs. Diaz, a motherly Mexican woman who had clearly helped raise Lucy, kept the conversation flowing with stories about the ranch's early days. Zara found herself relaxing in the warmth of this unusual family, so different from the rigid propriety of her Boston upbringing or the judgmental atmosphere of Goldfield. As twilight descended, Zara reluctantly acknowledged that she must return to town. Miguel brought the wagon around, and Lucy hugged her fiercely before Mrs. Diaz ushered the girl inside to prepare for bed. "I'll accompany you back," Declan announced, surprising Zara. "The trail can be treacherous in the dark." "That's not necessary," Zara began to protest, thinking of how the town would react if they were seen arriving together. "I insist," he interrupted firmly. "Miguel can follow with another horse for my return journey." The ride back was mostly silent, the wagon swaying gently over the uneven trail. Stars emerged in the vast Nevada sky, brilliant without the competing glow of city lamps. Occasionally, their shoulders would brush as the wagon hit a rut, each contact sending a ripple of awareness through Zara. "Thank you for today," Declan said finally, breaking the comfortable silence. "Lucy hasn't been this animated since we left Texas. You've been good for her." "She's a remarkable child," Zara replied honestly. "You've done well raising her alone." "Not entirely alone. Mrs. Diaz has been a godsend, and the ranch hands treat Lucy like a princess. But she needs," he hesitated, "female influence of a certain kind. Someone educated, gentle, someone like you." The implication hung in the air between them, unspoken but unmistakable. "Mr. Caldwell, Declan," Zara began hesitantly. "I'm flattered by your confidence, but you must know that my association with your family could harm your standing in the community. Goldfield may be a frontier town, but it has its own rigid social rules. Rules made by people like Widow Jenkins, who've never had to build something from nothing." His voice held a note of steel. "I respect you, Zara Harlow. Your intelligence, your kindness, your resilience. I don't give a damn what the town thinks." His declaration left her momentarily speechless. No one had defended her so fiercely since her father's death. "The school board meets Tuesday," she said quietly. "Mrs. Jenkins has made it clear my contract renewal is in jeopardy." Declan's hands tightened on the reins. "Because of today? That's absurd. Because of everything. My past. My unmarried state at my advanced age." She gave a bitter laugh. "My unforgivable crime of educating girls beyond basic arithmetic." "Then Goldfield doesn't deserve you," he said flatly. "My offer still stands, you know. To teach Lucy privately. The position would include room and board at the ranch, a fair salary." The offer was tempting, painfully so. But Zara knew what accepting would mean. "And my reputation? What little remains of it would be safe under my protection," he assured her. "No one would dare question your presence as Lucy's governess." They were approaching the outskirts of town now. Lanterns glowed in windows, and the saloon's piano could be faintly heard. "I need time to consider," Zara said finally. "This isn't a decision to make hastily." Declan nodded, respecting her caution. "Of course. But know this," he pulled the wagon to a stop at a discreet distance from her boarding house. "Whatever you decide about the teaching position, my feelings toward you remain unchanged." "And what feelings are those, Mr. Caldwell?" Zara asked, her heart racing despite her outwardly calm demeanor. In answer, he took her gloved hand in his. "Feelings that would scandalize Widow Jenkins far more than any teaching arrangement," he said, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Feelings I'd like to explore further, with your permission." The directness of his statement both thrilled and terrified her. Hope and fear battled within her, hope for a future she had never dared imagine, fear that reaching for it would only lead to fresh heartbreak. Yet Declan Caldwell had awakened something in her that she thought long dead, the courage to believe in possibilities. Tuesday morning dawned clear and hot, the Nevada sun already scorching by the time Zara walked to the schoolhouse. The school board meeting was scheduled for that afternoon, after classes dismissed. All morning, she taught with particular passion, aware that these might be her final hours with these children she had grown to love. At lunch, Lucy approached her desk, unusually solemn. "Miss Harlow, are you leaving us?" The directness of the question startled Zara. "Why would you ask that, Lucy?" "I heard Papa talking to Mr. Peterson from the bank." Papa sounded angry. "He said the town was being foolish, and that if they let you go, they'd regret it." Her clear blue eyes, so like her father's, searched Zara's face. "Please don't leave." Zara's heart constricted. "Sometimes adults have to make difficult decisions, Lucy. But I promise, no matter what happens today, you and I will remain friends." The afternoon dragged interminably. Finally, the last student departed, and Zara began organizing her desk, preparing for the board's arrival. One by one, they filed in. Mr. Peterson from the bank, Reverend Wallace, Dr. Morris, and of course, Widow Jenkins, who had somehow secured a position despite not having children in the school. They seated themselves at the front of the room, facing her like judges at a trial. Mr. Peterson, as board chairman, cleared his throat. "Miss Harlow, we've convened to discuss the renewal of your teaching contract for the coming year." Zara stood tall, determined to face whatever came with dignity. "I appreciate the opportunity to address the board." "Yes, well," Mr. Peterson seemed unusually uncomfortable. "Before we begin, we should wait for our newest board member." Confusion crossed Zara's face. Newest member? The schoolhouse door opened, and Declan Caldwell strode in, his presence immediately filling the small room. He nodded briefly to Zara before taking the empty chair beside Mr. Peterson. "Mr. Caldwell has recently made a significant donation to fund school improvements," Mr. Peterson explained. "The town council has appointed him to the school board in recognition of his generosity." Widow Jenkins's pinched expression spoke volumes about her feelings on this development. "Nevertheless," she said sharply, "we must address the concerns about Miss Harlow's suitability." "Indeed," Declan agreed mildly, surprising everyone. "Let's examine Miss Harlow's qualifications. Educated at one of Boston's finest women's academies, experienced in modern teaching methods, responsible for raising our students' literacy rates by nearly 30% in just 1 year. Quite unsuitable, clearly." His sarcasm was not lost on anyone present. Widow Jenkins's face reddened. "Her personal conduct is beyond reproach," Declan interrupted firmly. "Unless you're referring to her willingness to educate all children equally, including the Mexican and Chinese children other teachers have turned away? Or perhaps you mean her recent visit to my ranch, chaperoned by my housekeeper, to provide much-needed guidance to my motherless daughter?" The widow sputtered indignantly, but Reverend Wallace spoke up, his voice thoughtful. "Mr. Caldwell makes valid points. Miss Harlow's teaching results are impressive, and she's shown Christian charity in accepting all children." Dr. Morris nodded in agreement. "My own daughter has flourished under her instruction. She's reading medical texts now quite advanced for a 10-year-old. The rumors about her family," Widow Jenkins began, making one last attempt, "are entirely irrelevant to her abilities as an educator." Mr. Peterson cut in, seeming to have found his courage. "I move that we renew Miss Harlow's contract for the coming year, with an increase in salary to reflect her excellent service." "Seconded," said Dr. Morris promptly. "All in favor?" Mr. Peterson asked. For hands rose immediately, all except Widow Jenkins, who sat with her lips pressed into a thin, disapproving line. "The motion carries," Mr. Peterson announced. "Congratulations, Miss Harlow. We look forward to another year of your excellent teaching." Relief flooded through Zara, momentarily weakening her knees. "Thank you," she managed to say, her voice steady despite her emotions. "I'm honored by your confidence." The meeting concluded shortly thereafter. Widow Jenkins departed first, barely acknowledging Zara as she swept out. The others offered congratulations before leaving, until only Declan remained. "That was quite a performance," Zara said when they were alone, torn between gratitude and uncertainty. "Though I'm not sure whether to thank you or scold you for interfering." "Not interference," he corrected, moving closer. "Investment. In the town's future. And perhaps in my own." His gaze held hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "What exactly are you investing in, Mr. Caldwell?" "A partnership," he answered simply. "Professional for now, but with potential for expansion." The careful phrasing made her smile despite herself. "You're a shrewd businessman. When it matters." He took her hand, his touch sending warmth spreading through her. "Zara, I know this is sudden. We've known each other only a short time. But out here, life moves differently. When you find something rare and valuable, you don't hesitate. And what have you found? She asked softly. A woman of intelligence and principle. Someone who sees Lucy for the treasure she is. Someone who makes me think about more than just surviving each day. He paused, his expression vulnerable in a way she hadn't seen before. Someone who might, in time, consider building a life with a widowed rancher and his matchmaking daughter. The words were not quite a proposal, but the intention behind them was clear. Zara's heart raced as she considered all that had happened in the past week, how quickly her world had changed, how suddenly hope had returned to her life. I'm still the same woman the town has whispered about for years, she reminded him. That won't change overnight. Let them whisper, he said dismissively. We know the truth. That's what matters. His certainty was compelling, his faith in her humbling. What about Lucy? A child's wishful thinking isn't always grounded in reality. Declan smiled. Lucy sees things clearly, sometimes more clearly than adults burdened by convention and fear. She recognized what you and I might become to each other before either of us admitted it. And what is that exactly? Zara asked, needing to hear him say it. Partners. Friends. His voice deepened. Lovers, eventually, if you'll have me. The boldness of his statement sent a shock through her, followed by a warmth that had nothing to do with the Nevada heat. This was what had been missing from her life, not just affection or attraction, but honesty. The courage to speak truth and reach for happiness without apology. I think, she said carefully, that I would like to explore those possibilities. Slowly, his face broke into a brilliant smile that transformed his features from handsome to breathtaking. Slowly it is, then. We'll start with dinner at the ranch this Saturday? No pretenses this time, just a man courting a woman he admires greatly. I'd like that, Zara replied, returning his smile with one of her own. As the summer progressed, Zara found herself spending more and more time at the Caldwell ranch. Each visit strengthened the bond forming between her and Declan, and deepened her connection with Lucy. The townsfolk still whispered, of course, but the whispers changed in nature. Speculation about scandal gave way to predictions of wedding bells, especially after Declan began escorting Zara openly to church services and town gatherings. On a perfect autumn evening, with the desert painted in golds and reds by the setting sun, Declan proposed properly, down on one knee in the garden behind the ranch house, with Lucy watching excitedly from the kitchen window. Zara Harlow, he said, his voice steady despite the emotion evident in his eyes. You've brought joy and learning and love back into our lives. Would you do us the great honor of becoming my wife and Lucy's mother? Tears blurred Zara's vision as she nodded, too overcome to speak for a moment. Yes, she finally managed. Yes to both. They married in November, a simple ceremony in the town church. To Zara's surprise, most of Goldfield turned out for the occasion, including many of her students and their families. Even Widow Jenkins attended, though she remained stiff and unsmiling throughout. Lucy stood beside them during the ceremony, holding the rings and beaming with triumph at having successfully matched her father with her beloved teacher. When Reverend Wallace pronounced them husband and wife, she was the first to cheer. At the reception held at the newly renovated schoolhouse, Lucy tugged on Dr. Morris's sleeve as he congratulated the couple. See, she said proudly. I told everyone Miss Harlow was perfect for Papa, even when the town said she was unmarriageable. I knew better. The doctor laughed, ruffling her hair affectionately. Indeed you did, young lady. Sometimes it takes a child to see what's right in front of us adults. Zara, overhearing the exchange, met her new husband's eyes over the crowd. His gaze, filled with promise and devotion, told her everything she needed to know. Here, in this unlikely place, with this man and his remarkable daughter, she had found what she never thought possible, not just acceptance, but genuine love. You know, Declan murmured, pulling her close for a moment away from the celebration. Lucy's already planning for siblings. Zara laughed, the sound free and joyous in a way she hadn't allowed herself in years. She'll make an excellent big sister. Eventually, he agreed, his eyes twinkling. Though I'm looking forward to the practicing part. And as he kissed her, heedless of the watching townsfolk, Zara knew that the whispers would continue, But now they would speak of how the unmarriageable schoolteacher and the widowed rancher had found perfect happiness together, guided by the wisdom of a child who saw past prejudice to the truth of human hearts.